We've spent a few days learning what equivalent fractions are, what they look like. We used manipulatives and drew pictures to find equivalent fractions. Today in this video, we are going to learn a shortcut that we can use to find equivalent fractions. Let's look at a few examples. If I have 3/4, I know I can look for an equivalent fraction by experimenting with my fraction pieces. I can check to see if 1/2 is equivalent. I know that 2/2 is not equivalent. I can check 2/3. Three-fifths, 4/5, Four-sixths doesn't work. How about 5/6? Finally, when I check my eighths, I can see that 6/8 is an equivalent fraction. I can tell they are equivalent because they are the same amount. Now I can also find equivalent fractions by drawing pictures. So I'll go ahead and start with 3/4. If I draw a line down the middle, I double my pieces. So now I've changed the size of the pieces and I've also doubled the amount. So you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces now out of 8, which matches what my fraction bars show. Well, like I said, today we're going to learn a shortcut. We know that any number times 1 equals itself. So 2 times 1 equals 2, 10 times 1 equals 10, 100 times 1 equals 100. So if I did 3/4 times 1, that would equal 3/4. We know there are a lot of different fraction names for one whole. For example, 2/2 is equal to a whole. So if I take 3/4 and multiply it by 2/2, the fraction that I get as my answer will be equal to 3/4. Their names will be different, but the amounts will be the same. So let's go ahead and solve this. I'm going to multiply my numerators. 3 times 2, and that gets me 6. And then multiply my denominators. 4 times 2 equals 8. And you can see that we ended up with 6/8, which is what I found in my picture, and it's also what we found with the fraction bars. When we multiply the numerator by 2, we're doubling the number of pieces that were shaded. So now we have 6 pieces that are shaded. And when we multiplied the denominator by 2, we got 8. Remember that the denominators are the sizes of the pieces, or how many pieces the whole is split up into. So now our whole is split up into 8 pieces, which is what happened with our picture, and it also is what happens when we show our fraction bars. Let's look at a different example. Our next example is with 2/3. I can check to see if 1/2 is equivalent. We know that 2/3 is not equivalent to a whole. I can check 2/4, 3/4 is not equivalent. I can see 3/5 is not equivalent, and neither is 4/5. Let's check 6ths. Great, it looks like we found one. 2/3 and 4/6 are equivalent. Let's find that answer by drawing a picture. So here I have 2/3, and then one way to create an equivalent fraction is to draw a line across the middle, and that creates double the pieces. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, and 4 of them are shaded in, which is the same answer as what I got up here with my fraction bars. We could find 4/6 by using the shortcut. So we can think of 2/3 times 1/2 equals 2/3, but we're going to change that 1 into a fraction that's equal to 1. So I'm going to change it to 2/2. So we'll do 2/3 times 2/2, and we get 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. So now we're working with 6ths, and there's 4 pieces that are shaded in. These two fractions are equivalent. So I found one equivalent fraction. Could I find another equivalent fraction? What if instead of multiplying by 2/2, I multiplied by 3/3? Two times 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So if this works, 6/9 is equivalent to 4/6 and 2/3. Now I don't have ninths with my fraction bars, so I won't be able to check with fraction bars, but I can check by drawing a picture. So we'll start with the 2/3. And then this time I'm tripling the number of pieces. So I'm timesing by 3. So instead of drawing a line across the middle, I actually need to draw 2 lines so that I end up with the 9 pieces. So now instead of just 2 shaded in pieces, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shaded in pieces. And instead of just 3 big pieces, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces. And these are clearly all the same amount. So our shortcut works. These are all equivalent fractions. Let's keep going. Let's see what 2/3 times 4/4 equals. 2 times 4 equals 8. 3 times 4 equals 12. So if I show that with my picture, we'll show 2/3. I need to quadruple the number of pieces. So I'll draw one line down the middle and then keep going. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces that are shaded, and 9, 10, 11, 12 out of 12 pieces. So 8/12 is equivalent to 2/3. And I do have 12th pieces in fraction bars, so we can even double check with the fraction pieces. And we can see that 8/12 works with our fraction bars as well. We have 1/12, 2/12, 3/12, 4/12, 5/12, 6/12, 7/12, 8/12. These fractions are all equivalent. So when we're using this shortcut to create equivalent fractions, we can really choose any fraction that's equivalent to one whole. So the numerator and the denominator have to be the same because that's equal to one whole. And then when we multiply, the fraction answer that we get will be an equivalent fraction.